In the 11 years since the initial release of Halo Combat Evolved, the Halo series has left an unquestionable mark on the shooter genre, setting the bar which many shooters are judged against. Any new arrival of the series is expected to bring new things to the table and possibly help shape what the FPS genre is to become. Halo 4 is the first game in the series to be developed by in-house studio 343 Industries since Bungie's departure from the series after Reach. The game takes place 4 years after the event of Halo 3, with Master Chief and Cortana being marooned on a derelict ship in the unknown regions of space. Upon the Chief's awakening, he and a rapidly deteriorating Cortana attempt to prevent an ancient Forerunner being known as the Didact from destroying humanity. The story is largely driven by a sense of doom for Cortana, similar to the plot of Reach and underscoring the destruction of an entire planet. It begins strong, but doesn't develop fully enough with a few touching moments, then ending abruptly and disappointingly with a final battle in the form of a QuickTime event, and Cortana pulling abilities completely out of left field to preserve the protagonist for another sequel. The first thing you'll notice when you start up the game is the music, which is as great as any other soundtrack in the series despite losing veteran composer Mario O'Donnell. The game takes a much more somber tone than earlier titles and helps give the game life. Surprisingly, to help accomplish this, the game also employs amazing visuals to breathe new life into the Haloverse, and while not as impressive as some PC titles, are nothing less than astonishing for an ancient console led by excellent art direction and lighting. Although sometimes the environments can feel bare and lifeless, but that lends itself to the feel of the Halo games. The gunplay and combat in general have been tightened and don't feel quite as floaty and unbalanced as some of the previous titles, and the acoustics of the weaponry have been improved. At the expense of brutes, floods, and a few others, a new race of enemies has finally been added to the game, the Prometheans. These consist of the Watchers, flying support enemies that can throw back grenades, shield, and even resurrect fallen enemies. The Crawlers, which are essentially the Promethean equivalent of grunts as they swarm en masse, but can also crawl up walls and move much more quickly, and are easily disposed of with one headshot. The Promethean Knight is the primary enemy and is more or less a harder version of the Covenant Elite. They can also teleport, and when combined with the Watchers can be more than frustrating playing alone on the legendary difficulty. The campaign can be played cooperatively and clocks in around 8 hours over its 8 missions. While not having some of the huge battles featured in previous titles, the locales you visit are varied and beautiful, and are overall satisfying and well placed, aside from the conclusion, which leaves much to be desired. The multiplayer of the Halo series tends to be what really draws people to the series, and keeps each title on your disc tray for months. Unfortunately, as with most of the rest of the game, with every step forward Halo 4 takes, it takes another step back. While the gunplay and overall mechanics of the gameplay feel significantly more intact than that of Reach or Halo 3, a few questionable choices by 343 linger, and what otherwise could have been a phenomenal experience. In total, the game comes stock with 13 levels, only 10 of which are playable in matchmaking, while the 3 pre-made Forge levels, while fun, aren't used in the matchmaking for some reason. The stages are all very detailed and polished, but unfortunately none of them, with the exception maybe of Exile, are very memorable, giving the game the second weakest offering of initial multiplayer stages in the series behind Reach. Things like the melee have finally been nerfed and rebalanced, giving the much-needed increase of the skill cap of the game. No longer will the strategy of removing an opponent's shield with a gun, and lunging in with a melee attack in mid to close range skirmishes be quite as viable. The guns feel more powerful and weighty than in previous games, but despite what it would seem, the actual variety of weapons has gone down since Halo 3, which had 28, Halo 4 only having 26. Many of the new weapons are just alternate versions of weapons such as the battle rifle, shotgun, and rocket launcher, with little difference between them besides their aesthetics. And the same can be said with the vehicle selection. The only addition is a bipedal robot called the Mantis, while 4 vehicles have been removed since Halo 3. This becomes a common theme in Halo 4, the worst of it being the restriction of game types. For some reason, 343 felt that they would remove the long-standing and popular one-flag CTF game type, along with personal favorites such as Multi-Team, Rocket Race, and Juggernaut among others, with the only new addition, rename modes aside, being Regicide, which is more or less Slayer with the point leader being a VIP target, and Dominion, a similar game type to Territories. This frequent trimming of desired features from previous titles is what ultimately causes the longevity of the multiplayer to suffer, and while it's partially made up for with its ranking system and class customization system, the decision to remove content that are staples to the series that help set it apart from the rest of the shooters on the market remains. While a better leveling system is welcome, it feels hollow compared to the leveling structures in games such as Battlefield or Call of Duty. The developers also decided for some reason to put a daily experience cap, forcing players to play the way they want them to, diminishing the freedom for players to level as they see fit. One of the highlights for the series, the Forge mode, is also a bit of a letdown. It adds a much welcome snap feature, and for the creative minds out there, hours of constructive entertainment, but yet again suffers from the problem that plagues the rest of the game: removal of the standards set by the predecessors. While you have 3 levels that you can customize now compared to one massive one, it still feels more limited to things such as not being able to make one flag CTF game types, removal for customized power-ups, limiting structural object implementation to only the 3 Forge maps, and most frustratingly, the decision to arbitrarily put limitations to where you can and can't build throughout the environments. If you make a Forge level that's an island, why not just make the natural border of the water be the limitation, rather than cut off interesting terrain? Also, the lack of an in-game community download area for user-made content and custom game-type matchmaking at this point seems ridiculous. Despite the criticism of poor design choices, the competitive multiplayer is in fact fun. It's not anything revolutionary for the Halo franchise. If you played previous entries, you'll know what to expect, and you'll know whether you like it or not by now. Overall, this one does feel better than Reach. However, this cannot be said for the much-hyped Spartan Ops mode. Spartan Ops is 343's idea to include weekly content into the game via cooperative episodes that extend the story of the game and create something for you and your friends to do. Unfortunately, this is the replacement of the Firefight mode, which at least in ODST was far superior in every way. In short, this mode, even on legendary difficulty, quickly turns into a dull grind, posing no challenge as you mindlessly blast through waves of enemies on a handful of stages pulled from elsewhere in the game, repeating over and over again. A few of the vehicle-based stages offer some enjoyment by making death consequential, as you won't have your vehicle upon respawn, and it encourages teamwork in multi-man vehicles. It is a testament to the emptiness of Spartan Ops that the most effective way to get ammo is to suicidally run at a group of enemies, throwing whatever you have left at them, just to die and respawn with ammo. Had 343 put in something that required teamwork and left a rewarding feeling of accomplishment, such as ODST's Firefight mode, the game would have overall been significantly better. Halo 4 ultimately doesn't live up to what it should be. The game feels fresh and exciting at first as you delve into its gorgeous environments and world with newly reworked shooting mechanics, but begins to feel stale and limited as you invest more and more time into it and begin to see the shortcuts 343 decided to take and question their decisions. The game is still a very solid and enjoyable experience, but does little to advance the series in any bold new direction. Instead, it is a conservative effort to appease Halo fans, while making the severe misstep of regressing features and mechanics from prior entries in the series, which were in no way broken.